In his new book, Frontier, Gavin traveled to 10 countries to find the most profitable investment opportunities. His #1 choice is Nigeria. Gavin joins us now from London. Gavin, why did Nigeria win?
Well, the book project started off with me asking the top performing fund managers, those ones that picked the right countries and emerging markets during the last 5 to 10 years, which country would be the emerging markets growth story of the future. And then I travelled to those countries with the people that picked them, and then I went back to the group of fund managers to ask them to rank the choices of their peers. And Nigeria came out #1. And mostly that's because of the demographics of the country. If you think back, rewind sort of 10, 15 years to the origins of the BRICS growth story, Brazil, Russia, India and China, that was all about these being large population nations that could sustain a big consumer boom.
Yeah.
And the same thing is for Nigeria. This is the country that, according to the UN, in our lifetimes will overtake America's population to be the 3rd biggest nation on the planet after India and China. So a huge amount of momentum. It's also a very young population. It's got one of the highest proportions of under 15s. And the base that Nigeria is starting at, this is the country that, where there's a lot of subsistence living, there's not a lot of disposable income generally. So there's a big uplift from there. Now, that's the potential. There's also the risks, and we know about the collapse of the oil price and how that's devastated Nigeria's economy. Right. We also know about the violence which has incurred on the elections, Boko Haram in the north having killed a lot of people. So it's not devoid of risk, certainly.
Gavin, one of the things that development economists say when they look at the BRICS and also at Nigeria is that one of the most important factors is governance, not just demographics. What reason do we have for hope that Nigeria is going to get this right when Brazil continues to not get it right?
Well, I mean, it's a good point, and corruption is still what a lot of people will associate Nigeria with. It still ranks on Transparency International scores among the 40 or so worst countries. Buhari, the new leader, most countries that have a new leader, the new leader is untested. In this case, the guy is tested. He was a military dictator during the 80s, and that's not a particularly great record to look at. There was all sorts of human rights allegations, particularly going on in that time. But he is somebody who's reputed to live a modest life by the standards of Nigerian politicians. He's somebody who's made corruption his #1 agenda, along with fighting Boko Haram. So this has to be seen, but certainly from the leadership down, they're making the right noises right now.
Gavin, speaking of Boko Haram, how strong is the extremist group in Nigeria right now? Does the military have the capacity and the will to defeat it?
Well, you saw before the election a 6-week campaign to make the North clean enough for voting to happen, to wipe out Boko Haram to the extent that people could actually get to the polling stations. And that was in a way a big success. People were very sceptical about why the election was being delayed for 6 weeks. They didn't believe that, after fighting Boko Haram for 6 years, anything substantial could be achieved in 6 weeks. But we did see that rollback. The interesting thing that we're seeing with the fight against Boko Haram is the neighbouring countries coming together so that Boko Haram isn't able to race against the border to escape when there's a military offensive.